Um, Hello world. I'll make this introduction short. This is my first time trying to record things. I've been wanting to record things for a while because I think there's not enough, sane voices speaking right now, and hopefully I can add some balance to the center of the scale. I have a lot of plans that I'm working on, including this first part I had already done, but it didn't turn out great, so I'd like to try again. I would like to share with people, and one of those things that I like to share is some books. I'd like to read through some books and also add my 2 cents and also start some conversations. Maybe people will talk to me, maybe I can talk back to them, and maybe we'll all learn something. That's the goal. If anybody likes the show The Leftovers, I'm in the process of creating some in-depth analysis about The Leftovers. There's a lot of symbolism there that I think I learned a lot from, and I'd like to share and see if anybody, maybe I'm a quack, and the internet, I'm sure, will let me know. But in the meanwhile, that's going to take forever. It has been taking forever. So for now, I'd like to read books. Read this book in particular, off the cuff. Well, as much as I haven't already tried to record, which hasn't been much, but kind of hopefully give a voice to a reason to expose people to some books that I don't know if how available they are. This is my first time acknowledging myself as a person who's recording my own voice, and that's going to take some time to work out. It's been, holy crap, I mean, I spent days trying to edit this first part of the book with my voice, and I have had to learn some things about myself. I have had to face myself as a person who's recording myself, and it's been really confusing. But I think the things that I have to say are important. They're questions, maybe they could be answers, they are conduits for conversation. I hope you'll stick around. I hope things sound as good as I could make them with the knowledge that I have, which is none. I'm learning this all from scratch. Things are falling all over me. I'm sitting in my closet trying to exist with people, and I hope you will choose to exist with me. I got a lot of things to say, and hopefully I can formulate them in a way that allows me to communicate with as many people as possible. I'm not really one for taking sides in this geopolitical climate, if that's what you would call it. But I got a lot to say about it, and hopefully we can all meet somewhere in the middle. We can all be balanced. It's so hard, I've realized, to allow people to get to know you, because there's so much information that if I'm just who I am on the internet, as I am with my husband, there's so much context that gets lost, so I'm trying to find the balance of who to be. And as per, there's a part of the introduction that I want to make this kind of a conversational tone. I want the ideas maybe to just come. I'll edit out as much of the stupid bullshit as I can and try to be coherent. That's the goal. I just want to be coherent. You could agree with me, you could not, you could just listen to the book and skip everything that I have to say. Free will and all that. This is a practice run on how to communicate with strangers, I guess, on a personal level. On to why I'm here. I found this book while I was searching for a hard copy I was searching for a physical copy of 1984 by George Orwell, which is another thing that I would love to read with people if this goes well, but I'm on this book right now, and I feel like my first impressions of this book will give me things to say in between that I've been wanting to say or ask or figure out with people. Maybe share ideas and see if I'm crazy. Let's use the Socratic method to talk about shit. I was reading 1984 with my husband, and we were reading it on a mobile device. I love the texture of books. Don't know why. It's just the physical copy, having it in your hand, feeling the pages, experiencing time somehow differently with a book as opposed to technology. So we went to a store to find that book and wasn't there. It was a used bookstore. I was just hoping that I'd run into a copy, which I did eventually. But the first time I looked for this for 1984, I found another book, barely touched. It looked like nobody ever opened up a page. There was not a crease, not a bend in its spine, which is unfortunate because I think there's a lot of people who are gonna like this book. I think there's a lot of prophecy in it almost. It's pages in time before right now. The things that have happened throughout history have just been repeating themselves. And maybe if we look at the past from a bunch of different angles, we could see these patterns and try to get ourselves the fuck out of it, because nobody's happy right now. Everyone feels anxiety right now. Everybody is depressed. Everybody's angry. Everybody's confused. Everything is chaotic. And I believe that if we take some time to share history together, we can see how maybe we've all been duped. Maybe we keep getting duped by the same kinds of people, and we gotta put an end to it. We gotta give instead of keep trying to take. Maybe. I don't know. So, the book I found in lieu of 1984 by George Orwell was called 2 Steps Ahead of the Thought Police by John Leo. I have not looked anything up about him, but the introduction is kind of telling about who he is. It's in his own words and in the words of Peter Jennings, but it was just neat. Thought Police 1984, if you've read it. If you haven't, I recommend it, or, maybe we could read it together and think about things. So hopefully I'll learn how to put timestamps on things, and then I can timestamp when, for instance, if you don't give a shit about the introduction, if you don't give a shit about the introduction, which I recommend that you do or read on your own time or something, because people write words down for a reason, so might as well check them out. I don't think I need to say too much about the book. I've read a couple of them, as I said, a couple of chapters, and I've read some of the names of the chapters and the sections. I think it's all just gonna reveal itself. I mean, and with a title like 2 Steps Ahead of the Thought Police, you're going in expecting something, hopefully. You got a theory about what this means, about what the book is about. So, this is the introduction to the Transaction Edition. This book was published in 1998 as the second edition. The first edition I don't know anything about, but it did get published, I believe, in 1993. So the things that this guy talks about happened 90, 2000, 2000. Oh my god. It happened around closer to 30 years than now. It's 30 years of things coming around again. Or things maybe have never changed. Maybe, I don't know. Let's find out. So, this is the introduction by the author for his second edition. Most of the columns collected here were written between 1990 and 1994. So, he experienced these things, exactly 30 years ago. Maybe even before. He has to have seen this stuff coming. He's had to analyze life and to come to these conclusions to write in 1990. You ever get high and some of your mannerisms, or even just I scratched my shoulder and I just felt like I was my mom all of a sudden, like something about her just got revealed inside of me. Like those tropes when a woman is nagging a man and he's like, oh, I'm turning into my mother. You're turning into your mother. I heard her in my voice or something. It's so weird to be a part of a dead person. Sometimes. Anyway, that's not the point. I mean, it is the point, but let's do some fucking book reading, eh? So he's written the things that I'm going to read between 1990 and 1994. And a section of later ones has been added for this edition. Some are funny, some are sober, but I hope not solemn. They are written in what I firmly insist is a conversational, informal tone. You might as well know that my heroes in this area are Mark Twain, H.L. Mencken, and A.J. Liebling, 3 very funny, very serious writers. These men can hardly be held responsible for my writing or my conclusions. However, they are indeed responsible for some unmissable attitudes in their work and in the work of those who admire them. Try not to be ponderous or wish-washy. Use humor to make a point, not just to entertain. Take the material seriously, not yourself. Never use a 3-syllable word if a 2-syllable one will do. Avoid grand effects as you would avoid Lyme disease or Donald Trump. I hope that doesn't throw anybody off. I mean, this was the 90s. Everybody knew he was a dickwad, but, a rich, elite person who puts his names on things, and it was frowned upon at one point, the way he treated people. But this book is not going to get into him. This isn't about him. This is about the state of the world then and now. So don't run away. Just because I said, a red word. For conversational tone, I have another model whose name should be heaved in here. Football announcer John Madden. For years, people have been saying Madden sounds like a fan watching the game with you from the next bar stool. True, but the people who say this usually don't understand what an achievement it is to climb up on the bar stool and not sound like a distant know-it-all. I don't know how he does it either, but it's great. If you want a fancy name for this, call it simulated interactivity. Columnists and football announcers can't really converse with an audience, but they can try to make their monologues sound like conversations. So I guess, he's really just saying that it might sound a little confusing, I guess. I don't know, maybe it's me just reading it out loud for the third time, or what, but he's trying to explain how he writes, I guess, the voice in which he writes, and there are people who do that as well. Mark Twain, I don't know. The last time I read anything in Mark Twain was in community college, and I don't know. He's saying, get to the dang point. And there's people like John Madden because of the way he talks to you, like you're sitting at a bar stool with him, but you're not kind of being, actually, the Denver Broncos aren't a baseball team. It's football. He sounds, I don't know, interpersonal. What's the fancy word he used? Simulated interactivity. I guess that's what this kind of is. Except I don't have to follow rules in order to get a paycheck, so we can just talk even though we won't be face to face. I guess even writing would be that. It's just when you're pretending you're talking to someone, being informal. Madden's message is this: I'm right there with you, I'm involved in this just like you, and here's what I think. This is why they should study Madden in writing school, right alongside Twain, Mencken, and Liebling. I guess so. I thought he was just an idiot, but I can't really judge that. I'm not a football fan, not a anything fan. I watched Frank Caliendo's sketches on Mad TV. That's really all I know about John Madden. He draws a lot of pictures. Well, when you run over here, then you'd end up on the other side of the grass. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about sports either. But this is what this guy says. Madden talks to you like you guys are buds. You may as well know my other theories about column writing. One is derived from my years of unsuccessful eating in Italian restaurants. Be sure to wrap just one strand of spaghetti around your fork before twirling it into a ball. If you start with 2 or more strands, the resulting ball of spaghetti will be so large that it won't fit into your mouth. That's true. I should know. I have tried to put a lot of spaghetti in my mouth. And I probably would put a lot of spaghetti in my words here. So, lots of words to listen to from a person who has been doing stuff for a really long time. Your friends will be embarrassed and they may want to send you off to a pasta spa for remedial spaghetti twirling. I don't think my friends would pay for that. The weeks they'll just shame me on Twitter or something? That's why I don't have one. The weeks I have started my column with 2 or more deeply important big points to make fit into this category. They tend to end up as firmly coagulated balls of thought crammed into 850 words. Those columns are not included in this book. Also, I insist on an entirely obvious point. A column is not an editorial. You are not just revealing your ideas and your argument, you are revealing yourself. So if you are cranky, remote, ironic, ambivalent, touchy-feely, or whatever you are, those qualities have to show through or your columns probably won't work. I wonder where he gets that from. You have to present yourself and your attitudes as they really are. So far it has kind of worked to be that in life. Just be who you are at the moment, and if people don't care, then they know that no tangents. I cry a lot in front of people, and it's not to get attention, it's how I feel, and if you push that aside, then you push a lot of stuff aside. You lose the plot, sort of. But people don't have to care. I don't need it's not about sympathy, it's about being who you are at the time. If I have I'm not gonna skirt around a subject and be fake. If you're fake, I had a lot of problems with doing this recording stuff. I felt like I was fake because I was depressed and hadn't slept in a while, and I was still like, let me read this book. And I don't know how to balance it when you're recording stuff, because you don't have to just bawl all the time, but just be who you are in the moment, even if anybody in the world can access your words and your voice and your thoughts and not see them for what you intended them to be because of whatever reason. And it's an intimidating thought. It's an angering thought. It's a frustrating thought. But it's also a healthy thought because that's what exists. You can't shy away from shit just because you know it's there, so you pretend it's not. So, the balls of coagulated words, those columns aren't included in this book. So, if you're cranky, remote, ironic, ambivalent, touchy-feely, or whatever you are, those qualities have to show through, or your column probably won't work. You have to present yourself and your attitudes as they really are. The market for pretense and Olympian detachment in the column business is small. I didn't know that. You have lingered long enough on the introduction. Now read the book. I hear it's terrific. John Leo, December 1997. So, he seems like a guy who wants to wear who he is on his sleeve. Things come out kind of weird if you're, pretend all the time. So, here's the foreword by Peter Jennings. December 20th, 1993. I first heard John Leo holding forth across a dinner table some years ago. I don't remember what the subject was, but the temperature at the table was rising, and Leo was thoroughly enjoying the sound of contentious minds rubbing vigorously against one another. After all, he had started it. Fucking troublemaker. It is a rare occasion when what John has to say doesn't get his readers into high gear pretty quickly. Often he gets to fractious issues while other commentators are still wrestling over last week's news. He has something provocative to say about most everything that divides us, and he never leaves us confused about what he thinks. Whether he's dissecting political correctness, which he did long before most other people, or citing how the I am a victim tendency has run amok in the land, whether he's writing about family values, he really has them, or taking on courts he believes are legislating social behavior, John's page in the U.S. News is one of the most invigorating anywhere. Never read them. I guess I couldn't. I was very young. He even has a devoted following among those of us who think he's sometimes off base. Of course, he's got to say that. He's got to protect his ass. He's Peter fucking Jennings. Actually, there is another book about, somebody from CBS wrote it. Something Weinberg. It's interesting to hear his input. He's got a lot to say about Dan Rather, fucking tyrant of CBS. And he mentions Peter Jennings, and it's another book about how agenda'd sometimes, a lot of the times, the blue can be and are. I will not be saying anything else except red and blue, because that's basically what it is. And no use giving it. You don't call the devils out by name? Is that something that people have said? And thank goodness for small favors, he has a sense of humor. The highest compliment one journalist pays another is the admission that he or she has borrowed an item for further development. I have, quote, borrowed from John more than once. Part 1. This is where things get juicy. Ask the Dunderheads. An introduction to 90s culture. And they're not really, aside from the parts, there's not really chapters. I guess there's just columns. There's no chapter, so I'm just gonna read the column of the title of the column. Whitney to Whitey. Drop Dead. When you pay your $6 to see the big biennial art show at New York's Whitney Museum of American Art, the fellow at the cash register gives you a little attendance pin to wear. Mine said, "I can't imagine ever wanting to be white." In a flash, you know you have stumbled into yet another politically correct art show meant to frighten the white folks. Going on for a while. And even before this. And of course, the male folks and the straight folks. I don't know how to say this word, but it's just a fucking art word, so does it matter much? New age, or whatever this is called. New art. People put cigarette butts in an ashtray and call it art. Agitprop. Agitprop. Feel free to look it up. Agitpop art has been on the rise for several years. One museum after another has caved into the pressure and staged PC exhibitions that feature occasional dollops of actual art and great helpings of trendy propaganda about victimization, imperialism, patriarchy, and the dreadful stigma of white skin. Now it's the Whitney's turn. Whiteness is a signifier of power, the catalog explains, and wearing the button lets whites, quote, absolve themselves of some of the privileges of cultural imperialism. I had no idea that I liked imperialism. I had no idea that I benefited from that form of society. Since wearing these buttons is supposed to be mandatory, the catalogs chortle a bit about how visitors have little choice about pinning on a slogan that's self-loathing when worn by whites, racist when worn by non-whites, more racial togetherness, PC style. The button gimmick is a clear signal that very low expectations for the show are the most reasonable ones to have. One exhibit consisted of jars full of pieces from jigsaw puzzles, each with the face of a non-white person pasted outside. Perhaps this was meant to show that the dominant culture fractures the lives of minorities. I tried to come up with words for this, because there's a lot of questions to ask just with that last sentence. Dominant culture fractures the lives of minorities. So first off, what is the dominant culture in what I presume is America, because that's where this exhibit is happening, and yada yada. What is the dominant culture in America that's purely American? They could say a blanket of overall white, so that it's Irish or Jewish or... But those people are from different countries, so what part of the dominant culture is fracturing the lives of minorities? The art piece was jars full of jigsaw pieces, each with the face of a non-white person pasted outside. I mean, I think he broke down the art piece pretty well. So what part of the dominant culture in America fractures the lives of minorities? What about this culture fractures people any more than most other places? Christians in China, not allowed to do it. They say it's okay, but then they bulldoze churches and bury people alive? There's the Falun Gong practice in China, where those people are taken to camps. Everybody's taken to camps. Can you be non-Muslim in a Muslim place without paying more money? Because in the Quran, you're allowed to be Christian and Jewish, but you gotta pay a fee, basically, like an extra tax. What if you went to a place like Saudi Arabia and you wanted to wear skimpy things? What is it that, and who are the minorities? And so who are the minorities? What is being fractured from them? What about the thing that's supposedly fracturing them is wrong? And why are they here? What about their culture do they need to replace in order to keep themselves? If you take a trip to Japan, what would you have to leave behind as the minority being in someone else's culture? And the only thing that I can think of is the corruption. That's the thing that fractures everybody. It's the thing that keeps us all against each other on two separate sides of a scale, so that there could be a fight and a schism. Divide and conquer. Instead of getting to a truth. Instead of doing this, in my opinion, stupid fucking art piece, everybody's fractured. Say exactly what's wrong and have a conversation. You gotta shut your mouth when having a differing opinion. And it's gotten so crazy to the point where, I mean, like, some people have a lot of differing opinions that are kind of dangerous, and it's because of not being able to critically think. I mean, how can you think the fucking world is flat? Maybe it's a different size, but read some books. Look at that one Pornhub video where they sent a dildo to space. There is a curve. You can see it when the sun is out and it burns a trail through a window. The discoloration. There's an angle at fucking sundials. Less art, more critical thinking. Another exhibit featured about 200 videotape movie boxes, each with a message in English or Spanish about how unfair Hollywood is to Latinos. One box for the sci-fi movie The Nest had this label: "Have you ever noticed that the villain is always a Puerto Rican? Actually, in The Nest, the villains are all mutant cockroaches." By current Whitney standards, almost any angry sentiment seems to qualify as art. Even a one-paragraph news clipping pinned to the wall behind plexiglass. I'm so glad minds are being used for such progressive things, especially today. I watched about how this chick who took hormones to become more masculine looking peed in a bunch of jars, broke laws Because apparently you can make, it's like a hazardous substance, and you're not supposed to travel state lines, I think it said, to bring it to New York to show this art of jarred pea. How have you helped anything? What are you trying to say? It had something to do with Drumpty-Doo and... Ugh. Giant letters running across one room said, "In the rich man's house, the only place to spit is in his face." I mean, that's rude, no matter where you go, no matter who you're dealing with, no matter what the color of his skin is. If you're blasting loud music outside, I say you deserve to get spit in your face. If you steal something, you deserve to get spit in your face. People deserve to lash out in anger when the culprit is right in front of them and they refuse to find ground with you because they just want to take from you. Then yeah, people have the right to get angry. With just a rich guy because he wanted more. Maybe it's a crime to want more. I know I changed a lot from my 20s to my 30s. There was a lot of progressive kind of thoughts about everything. But as I got less confused about who I was, the more I found that being more conservative in a sense was a better place to be for reasons that I could spurt about for hours. So it went from, being a poor kid who was like, yeah, everything is fucked up and revolutions, and to, yeah, maybe we can play this game where things are better for everyone instead of just turning tribal again. But that's also when I noticed a lot of, it was more the corruption in the system that I was trying to follow was so apparent because it prevented me from doing things the nice way, not doing things in a way that it's said that it is. You go in, you have credit, you apply for a loan, instead of, having to suck dick or all these laws that are meant to protect people and make you the bad person when you are beneath them, like landlord to tenant kind of thing. And that's when things just became a lot more clear. But there's a lot of shit that I had to get over in myself that brought on confusion and thoughts of sexuality or death, being an adult, the nature versus nurture. But that's all. Whew. I mean, that's quite a mouthful of spaghetti. And it all has to come, a little more, making a flowy motion, so I'm not sure how to say that, but take note of the flowy motion. Anyway, to be continued. So there was an art piece where, in giant letters, it just says, "In the rich man's house, the only place to spit is in his face." A large section devoted to women's rage has a piece of plastic vomit on the floor. Artsy. Just like the one sold in novelty stores, but much larger. A work by Sue Williams screams, "The art world can suck my proverbial blank." I don't know what she really said because it's blank in the book. The catalog tells us that this, quote, "wrenches painting away from its white male domain." Don't know if you really wrenched anything away from anyone with that. I mean, you are saying a thing. And you do have an art display. And men can be talented too. There were some very talented painters. I wonder if there were many women painters. I don't know if I ever really looked into that. Art is not really my forte. there's maybe like 3 pieces of art that I could name off the top of my head that like really make me feel something. I'm not religious, but one is I forgot who it was by, but it was a Saint Sebastian, I think. He had become religious, and the Romans tried to kill him, but people found him in like the sewer and brought him back to health. He wasn't really dead when they put him down there, and then he got killed a second time after, trying to be Catholic or Christian. But there was something always, I don't know, about the way he was looking up and seeing all the arrows in his body. And Caravaggio, he was kind of cool too. So I don't know what fucking white male she's talking about. I mean, it is a shame that women played a different part, used as pawns, just like, every other race or creed or what have you. It's all agenda. And so is this, seems like. One exhibit shows 3 grotesque casts of a larynx and tongue, presumably the remains of murdered women, accompanied by the sounds of women's laughs and cries. The larynx and tongue are made out of lipstick to represent, quote, the silencing of women through the use of a specifically gendered material, lipstick. You have the choice not to wear it. I found a few people over the years, and not much during that period of time of my sexually active phases up until now. Did I wear makeup? Donald Moffat's Oh Baby sheet with a fuckhole, consisting of a sheet with a hole in it, was missing when I attended. The guard said it had been damaged and removed for repair. Someone had touched the nearby Chocolate Gnaw, a giant work in brown lard by Janine Antoni. Antoni critiques a patriarchal community where eating is transgressive, said the catalog. What? And then wiped his or her hands on Moffat's sheet, perhaps not realizing it was a work of art. At most exhibitions, artists do not post signs explaining their work. Yeah, you just you're supposed to look at it and, interpret it, right? But at PC shows, they always do. The itch to harangue is just too strong. A curtain made up of floor-to-ceiling branding irons carries this helpful explanation. We'd started a brand to think about how we'd been branded as people, as gendered subjects, as sexual subjects in culture. I get it. I mean, everybody has identifying personalities or identifying features. Everybody has identifying features. Brown eyes, and I think, and a thought just came to me, because I know I feel this pretty strongly. I don't like to be branded. I know that you do. I mean, if you like punk rock clothes and you like punk rock music and you got a lot of safety pins and some dye in your hair, or punk or whatever. But I try to get away from identifying features so much because I felt like I was trying to compensate for something. And the more piercings I removed and the more I let go of some things that was like, hey, look, I identify as something, the better off I was. And with that, I think, when you want to identify as things, the whole point is to be seen like that, And the more I got rid of that stuff, the more I was like, I don't want you to look at I don't want you to know I have a phone number. I'm not going to fill out any bullshit things. I'm not going to go to your website if I can't use my proxy. I don't have Facebook or things like that. I've been isolated. Maybe because I'm still figuring things out. I haven't emerged as the person I've been understanding myself to be based on things that I haven't created myself. Like, I like the bullshit surface things. Like, this is the music I listen to. This is my favorite color. Is what is the truth? And where do I fall on it based on who I am and what I can and can't control about myself? But there are some things, like, identify as like a chick. That's not fair because a chick is supposed to be this and that. I am. Nature says that I am a woman. And I will inevitably be treated as such. Even in the way a lot of the men in this particular city, which is very corrupt and gross, and everybody is so selfish and so path of least resistance and so they avoid everything that they can. If they have power over you, they would rather call the cops on you and say you raped them than, pay you back the money that they owe you, sort of thing. And there's not a lot of convincing them because they know that they have power over you. And I feel it, I think, even more as a woman because I don't even get looked at here sometimes when I'm with my husband. And it's his fault, too. He is kind of retarded, and sometimes he doesn't introduce me, but, you'd think, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But I am a female. That is my nature, and the more you get used to nature, the more you say, okay, I can't control you, nature, so just tell me, instead of me trying to tell a force that is beyond me and will be here after I'm gone, who I am, how. It just doesn't. The more you can let go of things that shouldn't be there, and the less confused you are about who you are and what your purposes are and what you feel about things and why everything's so fucked up, it starts shedding some light on the confusion when you just say, fuck. There are things I can't control, like nature and time. You can reason with nature, there's a balance between nature and nurture, but I'm saying, genetically speaking, I can be as manly as I possibly can physically be if I wanted to, but that doesn't make me a man. I was still born with things, with feelings, with DNA, shit that we probably don't even understand on like molecular levels, cellular levels, that make me a woman. And now I have to wrap myself around that instead of whatever the fuck I want, which is what a lot of people do. Because what is truth if it lives inside of you? The truth is outside of us. And we have to grasp onto things that we can't control in order to know where the foundation is. We can't just go through life saying we're going to live forever. Because when you die, what have you done to negatively affect the world by then? What could you have done good? Who knows? I don't know. But people have identifiers. I have fucking blue eyes or green eyes or brown eyes. When people want to identify you to the cops, you goddamn know well, they tell you everything. He was wearing fucking Nikes. He stole my wallet. The only branded is the stuff that people fall for the most of now. Oh, we're branded as this and that. Okay, well now you're branded as a drag queen who will purchase lots of makeup, so I should advertise to them. You're not branded, you are given brands and you gleefully put them on. You think you're not being tricked by Maybelline because there's a guy with a beard who's wearing the makeup now? You're still being used. You're not as in control as you think. Some people out there. When artists don't lecture us, the guides do. 2 large paintings of Hansel and Gretel and of Santa Claus with small children are surrounded with smaller, ominous pictures of danger and abuse. A guide said chirpily, "These storyboards show that underneath normal family life, a lot of sinister things are going on. A lot of child abuse and evil. And that's in whose family? There's a lot of child abuse going on, but I don't know, that's a lazy way. How about you stop child abuse and not make fucking art about it?" Speaking of those darned nuclear families, what should appear right near Hansel, Gretel, and Santa? Nude and bland mannequins of a hand-holding family. Father, mother, young boy, and baby girl, all exactly the same height, about 4 feet tall. Speaking of nature, families are natural. You are born from a mother who got sperm somehow from a father. It should always start with the family. It's not that family is a bad idea. It's that the way we do things with family is a bad idea. The way we raise children and the way we were raised and the communication and the teaching, it's all for another time. But it's just looking so surface. Oh, I see. What's a good example? Isn't it just the same as getting robbed by a black guy and then going, "Oh, I guess all black people are like this, so we should get rid of black people"? Families are bad because you grew up in a bad family? Because maybe they're trying to say something more, I'm simplifying it. Or maybe they should be more specific. These are eerie pieces with some aesthetic power. Was this a put-down of a dumb-looking white family? The guide said no, but she added brightly that this is one room in the show where male heterosexual Caucasians can pause and see the representations of themselves on display. Gee, thanks. It's so simple. It's so basic. You don't know what people go through and what. First of all, for the 5th time, Caucasians come from Asia, the Caucasus. I'm sure there are some immigrants from there. However, some people are from Europe. So, has anybody ever traced exactly the migrations of people and where things started and how people, if we all came from the same thing, then color is nothing. And now that you say Caucasian, I guess that was always said, but what the fuck is that supposed to be? Do words not mean anything? Apparently not. If there was a room full of fucking Caucasians or a room full of fucking white people, they'd still make a hierarchy and they'd find a reason to dislike the ones on the bottom. Those people are animals. Those people are blah blah blah. Oh, where was I? I want to get through a little of this because I'm not even up to the part where I didn't really talk too much in the last one. I think I just wasn't accepting enough of getting my thoughts out, and I don't know, it didn't work for me. I wasn't a good representation of myself. I think I wasn't showing vulnerability. Yeah, gee, thanks for letting me, know who I am, right? You spend your whole life seeing through your own eyes, and you suddenly know that everybody's the same. In the 2 numbing hours at this organized shambles, I learned that the world is nearly divided into good and bad, according to them. Good, women, non-whites, homosexuals, transvestites, gang members, glory holes, people with AIDS, gays in the military. Bad, America, straight white males, family, religion, hierarchies, lipstick, liposuction, fatism, and penises not attached to gay men. It's so weird how nothing has changed. Hierarchies and family, 2 of the most basic things. Religion being, I think, a nurture to some nature that we feel, and obviously family is nature. Get away from nature, not find the balance, not find what's real. I've never wanted a family. I always thought it was stupid and, the typical bullshit. My friends are my family, but there's something that I feel as an older person about creating life and perpetuating life and loving on a deeper level, and I think all that is missing. But I mean, it's the same shit. Oh, lipstick, fatism, hierarchies. I'm pretty sure he even says patriarchy in here. It's hard to imagine the Whitney, once a great museum, coming back from a self-induced disaster of this magnitude. This is one more grim, whining, monocultural victim show, with all voices singing the same old hey-ho, ho-ho, Western culture's gotta go. Lyrics by Stanford University and Jesse Jackson. I don't know that for a fact, but I mean, it sounds pretty accurate. And what is it about Western culture that's gotta go? The progress that it's made, its roots in Greek philosophy, or is it the corruption that is everywhere? You want to go to Africa where there's still warlords? You want to go to Saudi Arabia where a king still exists? Do you want to go to the fucking Caucasus that are constantly bombarded by Russia until they finally gave in, and I guess now they're probably rebuilding, but they're having Muslim terrorist problems? What should Western culture be replaced by? Something that already exists? Something that caters to this victim culture so that people have an excuse not to do stuff? Listening to teenagers and 20-year-olds and what they want when they don't know what the fuck. I didn't know what the fuck I wanted in my 20s. It was only when I was 27 where I thought, I think I want to do a traditional thing. I want to make myself look good for a boy, for a man. I want to look good for a man so that I can attract him, so that we can become as one. That's something I never thought that I would ever want. I'll just sleep around and be a fucking... Not enjoyable. Well, wait till people get 30. Wait till people get to 30. And then find out what you really want. Fight the things that you have so much energy as a teenager and a 20-something-year-old to fight the good fight, not just fight for the sake of fighting, not just fight for other people's agenda. I have some pretty wild and wacky observations that I've made about what's going on between this red and blue thing that is permeating even people's fucking vocabulary now. And it's not good. Freedom is being taken away at every step, and saying, oh, just forget the parts that, you can get away with. In North Korea, it's illegal to have your own little stand to make your own money, but because they need the food, because North Korea isn't doing well, they allow the shops to exist because they can't provide what. So just deal with it until the person says, okay, you can't do it anymore because we don't need you to do it anymore. In a phrase used at all these shows, it's about replacing the center, which is mainstream America and its values. How is that the center? Shouldn't the center be the truth? And not just mainstream shit? With the margin, the race and gender ideologues and their allies. I feel like both of those are pretty margin, because the center should have nothing to do with things that don't apply to everyone. The Whitney catalog makes this clear. Marginality, in effect, becomes the norm, while the center is increasingly undefinable and perhaps irrelevant. It's just a culture war. It's just a fucking culture war. Because I want what I want because it's who I am, and I don't give a shit who you want to be. In other words, it's about cultural war. Well, in other words, it's about a cultural war to destabilize and break the mainstream. The only question is why institutions of the center should join this crusade to do themselves in. Ask the dunderheads at the Whitney. Civilizations topple all the time. You might as well pick the team that you think you want to win. I mean, it's all just a fucking, you're either extreme one way or extreme the fucking other way, and everybody's scrambling to a side trying to find a balance. New column. Watching all the girls go by. What happens if a newspaper publishes an article about blue-collar workers who like to sit by the sidewalk at lunchtime and watch the women go by? Well, it depends. If the article comes out the conventional way, convicting the watchers of grave sexual harassment, no feathers will be ruffled. But if the article fails to point out that the men are all hopeless swine, an uproar will follow. That happened at the Washington Post, where the style section made the horrendous mistake of doing the story backward, listening to the watchers and interviewing them, instead of just ringing up the National Organization for Women for a comment on how bad they are. As Mary Hayter, editor of the Post style section, said, the idea was to report, quote, what could they be thinking? God forbid we get insight on people, right? Instead of just vilify. Very mild things, as it turned out, at least on Vermont Avenue and H Street in Washington, D.C., the day that the Post reporter Phil McCombs showed up. As he tells it, the workers are a multiracial and mostly polite group of males who enjoy watching the passing parade. He mentions some unspecified graphic comments the men made in private. One very crude and two mildly crude private comments are quoted, but in general the men seem affable and almost staid. The men are shown to be equal opportunity watchers, admiring females regardless of age or race. There are no humiliating catcalls, smacking sounds, or obscene suggestions. When they speak to the women, they seem to just say hello. One man says he thinks a shallow whistle is okay if it's done with respect. As a woman, I appreciate when people admire me from afar. Humans, are animals, and it doesn't matter if you get a catcall from a guy or a girl, People are still gonna sexually harass each other in this climate, right? I mean, how are you gonna hit on a girl as a girl if you don't make a move. And I think appreciation is nice and it's good. It does put a bit of a view on you. I think it has to do with a lot of self-esteem issues that people don't like to be appreciated. Of course, there's taking it too far, touching, or whatever the case may be. But there's a way that we naturally interact with each other, males and females. Men they speak more with actions than words. They're more physical, their language is more of the body. And should you force anybody to speak a different language? If he wants to look at you, if you want to look at someone, we just gotta find a balance. We gotta be able to say fucking no. If you can't say no thank you, you lack so much confidence that you gotta fucking snap at someone. I've seen it in other people, I've heard it admitted in other people, and I admitted it in myself. One time, as a kid, somebody called me hun, and I was like, I have a name, you know. But who the fuck? Well, he didn't know it because he didn't fucking know me. And what does it matter? Just making big deals out of fucking nothing. You go, hi, my name is... And that's all there is to it. You don't have to hang out with people. You don't have to stay in a conversation. If you don't like something, just fucking leave. There's a lack of confidence that we expect other people to curtail to, that we expect other people to bow to. But there's so much to that. Women are definitely more verbal. Men are definitely more physical. There might be something to do with the way men are programmed to look for a mate versus the things that we need. They're very focused. Women are more all over the place, I think, because of just things that men hunted. For the most part, they were stronger in a force sort of way. They are stronger. They have the capability of being stronger. So they would hunt. They were focused. Women needed bread and fucking raise children and fix the house. And I'm sure men had a part in that too, but I think women are more multi-directional and men are more omnidirectional. There's nothing good or bad about it. It just is what it is. The men are protective of the woman who drives the concession truck every day. They keep a lookout for a stranger who has been following her around for 2 years. The married men talk a lot about their spouses. The unmarried ones talk about the search for a dream wife. McComb said he saw no woman crossing the street to avoid the workers. The women's reactions ranged from ignoring the men to a wink, a smile, or a hello. So what was the uproar about? Now, NOW, 9 to 5, and the DC chapter of Men Against Rape were outraged and demonstrated on Vermont Avenue. They carried flyers charging that the Post piece, quote, succeeded in romanticizing street harassment and scapegoating working-class men and male construction workers. God forbid you give them a break, right? One distraught demonstrator says she felt very betrayed by the Post to get the view of someone else, to see who people are. You're offended, you're betrayed by the truth. That's just nonsensical. The truth is what it is. If you feel betrayed by the truth, then you got the truth wrong to begin with, bitch. The demonstrators and a few people in the Post newsroom talked about these men as if they were working to make the world safe for the rapists for tomorrow. Russ Funk, a member of the DC Men Against Rape, told me that, quote, these attitudes objectifying women are the same attitudes that support rape. It's not. I think it all derives from the same place. There's an ego that is driven by nature, but there's a limit. I mean, and these attitudes objectifying women are the same attitudes that support rape, are the same attitudes that make men want to work, or make men want to put jewelry on a bitch, or make men want to go to the gym, or make men want to drive the faster car than a faster car than his constituent. It's all just ego, and ego is nature. It's survival. If there wasn't a reason to live, then you would have no instincts to run away from a predator or to attack a predator, to defend yourself. There would be no reason to. Ego is just a part of the human condition, and you can use it to your benefit, and you can use it to everybody else's benefit, I think. Rape just is a bad thing. Rape is a bad thing. Using your eyes is not a bad thing. I don't know what objectifying. Don't women objectify men sometimes? I mean, maybe we shouldn't objectify each other, but what is objectifying? They're saying hello, they're talking to them. You don't talk to objects. Is it okay to objectify an object? Or should I give my stuffed animals a personality as well? Maybe I should ask My Little Pony if it wants to get fucked in the ass. This is a familiar rhetorical device in the highly ideological field of sexual harassment, associating small offenses or not offenses with serious harassment or rape. The Post's ombudsman, Joanne Bird, went along with this kind of rhetoric. She quoted an unidentified Post editor as saying, "Can you imagine if the Post ran a similar piece on domestic violence, thus putting women watching and women bashing in the same bracket?" Oh my god. I mean, so getting hit and sex. I mean, if it's just gawking, I mean, it still comes from the same place. We have an attraction to. That attraction has nothing to do with hitting women. In her column on the case, Bird wrote solemnly that McComb's article did not reflect contemporary sensibilities about sexual harassment. Translation: the article did not reflect the current newsroom sensibility that harassment is everywhere, even in the normal male tendency to admire the appearance of passing females. Ay, ay, ay. Should you not objectify cars? Is it racist to want to buy a red car instead of a green car? I guess we're just not supposed to have likes and dislikes. I've seen that Pootie Pie Jubilee shit. Everybody's a fucking piece of shit. Contrary bungholes. She writes as if the comments of construction workers are just too toxic to print in a raw state, unaccompanied by the correct newsroom perspective. If the people involved in Wednesday's story had been more sensitive, she wrote, substantive reporting would have appeared alongside the men's voices. That is reporting. What are those fucking news bullshits where they ask some random homeless guy on the street what he thought about 9/11? But the whole idea of the piece, after a zillion newspaper articles on what pigs these guys are, was to finally let them speak in their own voices without all that substantive reporting pointing out the amazing horror of sidewalk watching. There's a class problem, too. The upper middle class folks at the Post deal with the blue-collar men as if they were a strange, mysterious tribe. What could they be thinking? Sounding like Margaret Mead trying to figure out the Samoans, Joanne Bird thinks. We need to know why some men still line up and visually or verbally rate the bodies of women walking past. 'Cause it's just facts. I mean, you're allowed to have opinions about everything. Give them something more substantive. Probably not even saying that word. Substantiate. If people were more occupied with other things, they wouldn't be thinking about sex all the time. It's probably kind of primal. there might be a time and a place for hunting meat, but people don't occupy their times with anything else, and sexual desire is a very strong feeling, especially with kids. And what's the big fucking deal? Children are getting fucking raped, abducted, molested, and you're worrying about you getting your body raided? Maybe I can help here. Men line up because very few dining tables are put out on city sidewalks for lunchtime use. So construction workers tend to sit along curbs, steps, or walks, thus forming what we anthropologists call a line. Since they usually don't bring books or stock portfolios with them, they tend to look around while dining. And they tend to check women out, as anthropologist Helen Fisher said on Connie Chung's show. Jeez. I wonder how she's doing. Because they have been doing this for thousands of years or so, biology being what it is. I agree. The Post ran a follow-up story on the demonstration on Vermont Street. The only person who seemed to make any sense was a laborer who says he sits on the wall to eat lunch and looks at everyone. I have never heard anyone here make any rude comments to women, he told the Post. I might say hi or how you doing, but I say that to men who pass too. He seemed baffled that this behavior would get him involved with anyone's political agenda. But what does he know about newsrooms? So with all my talking and all it's going to take to try to do something in the form of editing, I guess I should stop it here. We got lots more book to go through, so I hope you want to share with me. I'll give you that as a parting gift. And I hope to hear from people. I hope we can figure some shit out together. Oh, I got anything else to say? Love with your heart. Use your brain for everything else. Nope, that's taken. That's just a theory. That's taken. Have a good day. Fuck! I hope to be doing these often, so check back. Bye.